Good morning. I wanted to give you an intro to what you're about to see. I have moved location. I'm sitting in front of my front window because I just thought it was time, right? Time to change location. What I'm going to show you today is we're going to go through a few of the sewing samplers that I have for sale for my cousin Jane, who collected these over many, many years while she lived in Austria. She told me a little bit about them. She told me a little bit about how she acquired them. She had a local antique store that she used to frequent that was near her house. And she'd pop in on a Friday after work, and the gal behind the counter would say, "Oh, yeah, I just got in a new basket or box of stuff. Here, take it home for the weekend, rifle through it, and pay me for what you like." So she accumulated quite a few of these samplers that way, and also just popping in and out of various antique stores over time. As I understand it, these pieces were made by school students who were given that as part of their curriculum. Now, I don't know if all school students were given that as part of their curriculum or if it was just part of them, few of them, but I do have a friend who is from that region, and she might be able to shed some light on it. I'm going to contact her. I haven't had a chance yet, but yeah. That is what you're going to see today. I hope you enjoy it. Remember, all these are for sale, so if you're interested in any of them, let me know. I think they would make great framed pieces in your sewing room. Would love. I will definitely be acquiring a couple from my sewing room, but I want to give you all a chance first because I have acquired quite a bit from Jane because she has great stuff, and I need to have a sewing room before I start thinking about decor on the walls. All right. Enjoy. Good morning. I am finally showing you the samplers. So I'm going to break this up, I've decided, into a few different videos. The first is the sewing samplers, just because they fascinate me so much. But as I understand it, and I'm going to confirm this with a friend who lived in the, I believe, Switzerland area, Austria area, when she was a child. But as I understand it, when you were a child in this region of Europe, and I'm sure in many other regions of the world, but definitely because I have these samples, it was clearly a thing in the Austrian region, because these have come from Vienna. That as part of your curriculum, you were given instruction in how to sew, like fine machine work, fine handwork, crochet, knitting. There was some embroidery. There was repair work. They taught you how to do repair work. And I have a stack of some examples of those pieces. Now, I'm going to tell you that these are all currently for sale. My cousin Jane, who you've seen in earlier videos and who I talked about in previous videos, she's collected these over years, and she lived in Vienna for years, and that's why these are from. This one happens to be from 1905. This person's initials were, it looks like, GT. I'm going to show you, here's an example of an inset. We have two examples of inset repairs. So basically, if you tore a hole in one of your garments, this would be a way to repair it. And it looks like they stitched by machine around this opening. Looks like right sides together, maybe from the back, and then they opened it up and hand stitched it down. We've got a darning or a woven repair here. She's got some fancy twisted initials and then the year. And then here's another example. This was done by machine and with a hidden stitch in the back. This one is like a little hidden stitch, but this one's done by hand, all by hand. Okay, and then she made crochet edges. She backed it in tissue paper. There's some writing on the back. It says GUIPPEIH. It looks like she practiced her penmanship on this tissue paper, is really what this is. And it's too bad. I guess I could carefully unstitch the tissue paper to wash the sampler. It is a bit dingy. All right, then let's look along here. So what we have here is practice seaming. This is a hand stitch seam that's just pressed open. Here's a hand stitch, let me look at this. This one looks like a machine stitch seam, but with some hand stitching after it was pressed open, right up in here. The next one is, looks like a French seam or a flat felled seam. Then we have a couple of pin tucks done. This one's by machine. This one's by, I really have to look close at it, and my lighting is not the best for my eyes right here. And then we have a placket for a button band. We have a button band. We have some handmade buttons. Let me get this into the screen for you here. These are handmade buttons wrapped around a ring. And I do have these rings. I need to try and do one of these buttons because it's like a woven pinwheel button. The placket is, it's interesting because the machine was not functioning very well. It's got little problems with it. So it needs some, the machine was not in its best shape. And definitely not the stitching of a machine like a treadle that would have been used at this time. Here is, looks like a hand-stitched pin tuck and another hand-stitched pin tuck, I think. In fact, her hand stitching looks better than the machine stitching did. Another seam here. We have a hem along here that's done by hand, and I can see the stitching. She did a bit of insertion lace here and crocheted the lace. And then we have just some other seams here. I would love to get to look at the back of this. Now this is interesting, and I'm going to show you the needle lace ones separately in my next video. But here is just a little bit of drawn work. So you could do this even today. This is still a technique. So you draw threads out, clip them, and then draw threads out, and then do, like with your needle, twisting of what remains of the threads in your fabric. And then again here, this is also done by hand with just the tiniest bit of drawn thread. And I'll move this up for you. Let's see if we can get this to focus. Nope, no focusing. Can't get it to focus, but I'll try and take a picture of this section here so you can get a look at what it looks like. And then GT, because I can't pronounce that last name, it looks like she did crochet. So she did crochet for her insertion lace, and she edged her piece with crochet. And then in the back, just to make it fancy, she put tissue paper on the back of this and did this. Now there is a second piece to this collection in the box that is also backed with pink tissue paper. So I'm going to guess that she did both of these pieces. And then at the very end, let's look here. At the very end, we have sewing on strapping. So that's another interesting aspect. These are both hand stitched on, a folded piece of strap and a flat piece of strap. So this was not to hang this piece. This was more practice with work. And this piece is $70 from 1905. Oh, does this say both? Oh, both pieces. So this piece and the second piece that I'm going to show you on another day are 70. All right, let's look at this piece because this is an interesting piece. So here is another practice piece or sampler piece. Has the cutout repair, but this one also shows you layered hems. So right here, pin tucks were often used for this, and this is in a sense a pin tuck, right? But it's a wider pin tuck so that when you grew, like when you make children's clothing, you could take the hem out, steam it really well, and then you can lengthen the dresses as those kids get older and taller. This one is, boy, this one, I'm looking to see if this is done by machine or hand. This one looks like, wow. Okay, if this one's done by machine and hand, it looks like. So we have a lovely hem here. This one is a very, very, very fine seam. Very fine. So, but even her handwork is very, very fine because the handwork, believe it or not, her handwork she did in pink thread. But can you see pink thread right here? I can just barely see it. So, and then we have a placket, and I will tell you, my nemesis, this is my nemesis, is the placket. So this person did this lovely cuff detail or placket detail to do on like a shirt. This one is a cuff, right? And beautiful work sewing on straps. And this is all done by hand. Let me tell you how strong this is. Here's another method to sew on a strap. A second strap was sewn on here, right here. Pin tucks, beautiful pin tucks. It's interesting, this has been pressed the wrong direction, but these should go this way. And then she did a little bit of decorative stitching, white on white stitching. It's like a little turkey tracks around this placket. Now this one we can see the back of, so I'll show you that here in just a minute. Here is a needle lace buttonhole, and then beautiful, beautiful gathers right here. Very, very fine gathers, and then beautiful handwork. An eyelet was done by hand. Here is more machine top stitching. Too narrow of a stitch if you ask me, but this one's done in pink. But her handwork is just gorgeous. Pleats, beautiful pleats. They're very evenly spaced. This is a student who had an eye to detail and was clearly enjoying her work. But just a small little thing, and you know, it kind of makes me want to do one, I gotta say, but you know me, I want to do everything, right? Here's that repair from the back. Oh, and look, this was all done by hand. So it looks like you have your tear, you turn it under from the front, and then you lay the patch on the back and sew a seam around the outside and again on the inside, and sandwiching the raw edges of your piece. And then here's the back of the placket. Some of this has got a little bit of tearing on it. There, let's see that. Oh, so this, let me see. I want to learn how to do a placket. So it looks like your back piece was cut out because there's a bit of fabric showing here, and then she sewed on the layering piece. A flat fell seam on the front, hidden in here. Beautiful, beautiful work, beautiful work. All right, 1904, K.A. did this one. And this could have been from the same, I mean, I don't know if the curriculum was the same. Here's another one of those spiderweb buttons. I know that this is a ring because I can see the brass sticking through the work, wearing out over time. This one has all of the seams that we saw before on by machine, but also quite a bit of handwork. This, look at this. This is, so this one is 2 pieces of fabric sewn really close, sewn together by hand, right here. And then they took a piece of bias on the back. Is it bias? Nope, it's straight of grain, and reinforced it. Now, I don't know. I've never seen that before. That's an interesting sewing technique. So I assume it's sort of like insertion lace, only you have a backing. It's very interesting. Here is joining together with no, wow. So this, I don't know where the edge of this fabric is. Maybe they used the bias, the what is it called? Oh shoot, not the bias edge, the edge of the fabric where they finish the edge, because there is no edge on this. Unless it goes in. Oh, maybe it goes in, and then we have a piece of fabric here to hide it. Ooh, I'm going to have to figure out that one too. We have pleats and a center flat pleat here, done by both machine and by hand. We have a placket here, and I showed you that with the buttonholes. These buttonholes look like, I believe they're machine done, but maybe they're just lovely. And these monograms with the stripe work on them, the marled look, I think they're using the grain in the fabric to get that look. So that is another thing that I want to experiment with, is using the grain of the fabric to get like a candy stripe look. Here's some insertion lace. Definitely insertion lace. Right here. Another bit of that needle lace, just in exactly the same design as the previous one. A bit of embroidery, which I'll show later when I do that. And then we have an eyelet edge. And I don't think a machine was capable of this. So this was all done by hand. Oh, and I didn't show you the gathers. An inserted ruffle ruching piece. And this was done all by hand. This was stitched in by hand in 2 different methods. So here it was just tucked under and stitched, and here it was encased in an edge. This one was $60, but it is a beauty, isn't it? All right, here is a lovely, lovely piece of linen. And this is actually one of my favorites because this one shows so many sewing techniques. And you would think, oh, it's just sewing, it's not got color, it's not fancy, but oh my gosh, the workmanship on this one is beautiful. We have these lovely buttons. There's a shank button sewn on, a 2-hole button sewn on, a hook sewn on, an eye sewn on. Oh, here, let me get the eye in for you. An eye sewn on. We've got one of the handmade buttons that is beautifully done. This person made a knotted thread technique to make a button loop. 3 button loops all the way down. We have a little bit of decorative pulled stitches or pulled threads on the either side of the placket. And then look at this. This is crazy. So this person learned how to hand stitch. Let me look at this. Oh, I think this is machine stitch. But to stitch on the bias. So how to stitch on the bias without having your bias fabric pull, because this is flat as a pancake. So this person did an excellent job of piecing on the bias together. We have another finished edge here. This one is turned. This is flat on the back, so this one is turned and tucked under to give a placket on the front with an even edge. And then this one is the opposite. This is 2 pieces sewn together, turned on the back. We've got little mini pleats here. I knew the name of this when I started with the video, and now I've forgotten. And then we have buttonholes that look like they were done by machine. But maybe not, because it changes. These may be handmade buttonholes. Handmade. I'll take a close-up picture of these and show you after the video. And then another, oh, here's another, looks like a flat felt seam. We have some drawn work again, beautiful drawn work. And then again, we have this eyelet lace on this eyelet edging on, this one's actually super pretty. Because look at, you've got eyelet on both sides of a placket. Very beautiful. And this is overlaid. So this is on top of the piece on the back, which is, and then, let's see. Yeah, all these are separate pieces. So you've got the fabric that comes to the edge, you have your eyelet piece that is underneath, and then a third piece that's sitting on top, and then top stitched down. This was ML or M, I don't know, M something. I don't know my monograms very well. But beautifully done, beautifully done, beautifully done. Oh, and then look at yeah, that's gorgeous. And this one was linen. And this one is $60. Beautiful photo, beautiful framed, beautiful. All right, we have another one. Oh, now look at this one. Here, I'm gonna flip this around so that you can see this in the front. Look at this, like a smocking front that's gathered underneath, and then you have this piece, and then your buttons, the handmade buttons. I don't think they're death head buttons, but they're, you know, they're a button technique that you weave. We have several different seam techniques. This one is not a flat feld. In fact, this one might be a French seam right here. This is a bit thick fabric for a French seam, but it looks pretty. Beautiful, beautiful, very fine crochet work here on the insertion lace. But insertion lace, this insertion lace is put in and then folded with extra pieces of fabric. This is a hand stitch seam here. Drawn thread work. Folded back seam. This one, look at, they pieced this one. So this is a strip of fabric that's folded back with a little bit of the edge showing. And I would say that is deliberate because it's so even. So they wanted this edge to show. And then we have repairs. So on this piece, we have several different woven repairs, a little bit of cross stitch, and then two different methods to do a patch repair. So this one is folded in, and then this one is done differently, and it's a bit more bulky because you have your piece all the way around. I've got to investigate repair because we live in the era of fast fashion. Who learns how to do this stuff? Nobody learns how to do this anymore, and I think it's time we started again. Taking care of our clothes, the make, do, and mend call to arms, right? Interesting that this one, at this edge, you see that fold over, and there is no way, no, she's done that on purpose, whereas this one, it's completely hidden. But it's the same edge technique. Oh, now this is bias. So this edge is done on the bias, and it's got 2 seams in the bias edge, so she practiced that as well. 3 seams. Boy, that's like taking some scraps. And then this one is also on the bias, but she has left it showing. So I don't know. And then the back, hand done, machine done, machine done. So a variety of, they're using machines and doing these by hand. Okay. And then we just have a few more. I want to show you this one because I'm going to show you the next one. This is another linen piece. I just love the way this linen feels. We have different seaming methods. This one, well, this one could be, this one's some beautiful linen. This one could all be by hand. This one looks a lot more of handwork. And I'm pulling kind of at the seams a bit because I can see that these seams are all done by hand. Oh, but that's, nope, that one's done by machine. You can look at the back and see what's done by machine and what's done by hand, because only machines do that bobbin lace, top lace. So here's this beautiful flat placket with handmade buttonholes. It's hand stitched, definitely. And it's a piece of fabric turned back and then turned to under and then top stitch on both sides. We have drawn work. This one, oh look, she left the raw edges on the back so we can actually see those. She made no attempt to finish this edge, but then on this edge it's completely hidden. You have a pleat. Here you have 2 seams butted up to each other with, ooh, interesting. So the raw edges here are sewn together visibly, but it looks like, and it definitely feels like, these are 2 separate pieces of fabric. We have another seam here. This one is French seam. We have another straight seam with the edges left raw. This one is butted up to each other. I don't know, that like has almost no edge, but it's very securely hidden. So I'm not sure if they did a whip stitch down it. Again, I'll have to get some good light to figure that out, but that's really nifty. And then we have a Feld seam, but it looks like it was stitched down by hand in a hidden stitch. And then we have another French seam right here. Here's drawn work. And then repairs. Now look at this. This is like, here, let me get this in the video. Here's a woven darned repair. And it looks like she didn't find very good thread. And she didn't enjoy it very much. This one is not as good as some of the rest. It's well woven, and it may have taken some hits, but it also seems like inadequate thread for this. I think you really need to look for linen thread to do a good job. But look at her repair here is just gorgeous. Oh, but she left the edges raw and then just did sort of a whip stitch where the seams meet. to stop the top piece from fraying more. And then we have just a little cross stitch with her name on it. And then we have different hemming techniques. So this one, this is cool. This has trim, not bias trim, but like the trim that you can buy at the store, like hem tape trim. Then we have the button edge. Here we have a straight of grain piece that's sewn around. And then here we have the fold over technique, but with some decorative stitching in the ditch so that you actually see it. It's beautiful. All right, again, we now have, and this one is on like a gray fabric, which is beautiful. I've got you on the underside, so let's flip this over. This is another one of the edges that is interesting because it's like lessons in additions. So we have the placket, my nemesis, the placket. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. Look at the back of that. So it looks like they sewed on a piece on the back as well as the front. But I'm still unsure as to how you, where you cut that slot opening, how you ensure that it stays covered. Three different plackets. So that's a placket. Here's another technique for a placket that's straight and squared off. And then we've got a third placket technique. Then this one has bias around the cut opening. Oh, and a fourth. This one is the arrow technique. Oh, and we saw one of these before. So yet a third placket where they sew a reinforcing triangle. Ooh, I kind of like that. I might have to try that technique for my placket problems. And then we have another placket. Oh, this whole thing was a practice in plackets. I wonder if she was punished. So we have this one where you just do a top stitch around the opening. And, yeah. It's folded around, but your front, this is the front. Oh, that one's interesting too. And then another one here where it's just, oh no, this goes just down from that. And another, Another where you reinforce with a triangle. And then just leave the seam. I really like that one. And then we have a covered edge. And this gal's name was Blesius Valeria. Valeria. B-O-I, Valeria. Blesius. And then over here, which are really pretty, is we have a couple of like exterior tabs, and I would assume you'd put those on a sleeve to button around your sleeve and here. And then we have ribbons, how to sew in ribbons. This one is out of a buttonhole. Maybe scoot this up. This one's out of a buttonhole. And this one is also out of a buttonhole. Oh, look at that. That is a cool technique. Look at that. You can gather it. Oh my goodness. That is spiffity doodle. See? Again, who would have thought? And all this is a piece of ribbon anchored at the end and out a buttonhole. Piece of ribbon anchored at the end, out a buttonhole. But when you pull it, you get beautiful gathers. Oh my goodness, that is clever. And then we have repair. We have a repair right here that is your standard repair. But this is a very fine batiste almost. And then we have a bit of a ruffled edge that she's done. She's done a beautiful ruffled edge with tape on the top. And then look at these two. These are really nice. Just anchored it on with little stitches. That one, this one's $40. But again, beautiful in a frame. Would be beautiful in a frame. All right, now here is a beast. This one could go in a very long frame because this gal really loved her sampler. This one is Mueller, done by Mueller, 1 Jarg A. Here is who did this one, right here. Mueller, 1 Jarg A. And she just did it with a little piece of paper. All right, we have a placket. We have just one single piece of drawn thread, which is interesting and cool. We have French seam. We have a Feld seam, but that is one tiny Feld seam. We have why can I not think of these? Pleats, pin tucks. There we go, pin tucks. We have some insertion lace, a little bit bigger pin tucks, a bit more insertion lace. Let's see if we've got different techniques. Both of these are with a piece of ribbon on the back. That's how they created them. But this one is sewn, I think this one was sewn on, cut, and then folded back and hemmed. And this one was sewn in separately, and then the ribbon to cover it on either side. More tiny little pleats. Another little placket, or actually this is a bigger pleat, but with a piece of top stitching along the edge. There we have a proper button placket with beautifully made buttons, handmade buttonholes, really nicely handmade buttonholes actually, very tidy. And then a bit of a lace edge, and then we're on to plackets. Definitely, this is where I need to be. All right, so here is your arrow bottom placket. We have the one that flares open, which that is so cool. It looks so sailory, don't you think? Here, let me pop this, sorry. Get this into your view. See, with that little flange, and then it pleats in. We have the kind that I have done, but this has got the handwork in it. This must have been the same teacher, because that is a technique I have never seen before. And then where the arrow is on the outside, another one where the stitching is a bit different. Ooh, and then, this one is curved stitching. So here is your denim, your fly to put your zipper in for your jeans or your slacks. We have, ooh, wow. This one is like foldy. So this one's cut here, but look down underneath. You have all this fabric. So like for a smock top. And then another edge where this is encased in some straight grain, but it's a piece of straight grain around it to form the hem. And then we have her diagonal work, or her bias work. There's a pleat, a couple of seams, some pin tucks, these beautiful edges in the work, and buttonholes, more buttonholes. And then at the very end, we have the practice repair. Looks like she cut this one off, but maybe that's on purpose. We have the practice repair and more hemming. This is regular hemming. These are done on the machine. A lot of this is done on the machine. And this one's $60 just because it's so big. Now this one I could see breaking apart here and having 2 frames out of this one. But have it all go together because it's so long. Or you'd do a very, very long frame. It would be a beautiful frame. All right, and another somewhat long one. This one's just tied by ribbons. She just did a smattering of hand-done buttonholes. We have a seam where there is no... Yeah, this is done. Shoot, what is it called? This is done with 2 pieces of fabric where you have the 2 edge pieces, and I cannot think of the name, but I'll type it into the... I'll type the name when I look it up here. But the edge of the fabric where it's finished edge, and they butt them together and use it as a place to do a seam. Pin tucks, a French seam and a Feld seam, some insertion lace, more pin tucks but close together, and then a ruffled placket, and she did her buttonholes in 2 different directions, plus made the fancy buttons. And then we have some fine edging, some hand-stitched edging. We have, oh, that's interesting. So she embroidered some dots. I think this is called dotted Swiss, actually, Swiss dot. She did some edging. She also did some eyelets. Another eyelet here, and laced it with some lace, narrow ribbon. This is cotton, so this is like twill tape. And then did some buttonholes, some knotted buttonholes, and then did her little repair piece, plus, which I love these little edge pieces. So how to stitch in like loops to either anchor your work or to do a buttonhole. That provides a big buttonhole loop. All right. We just got a couple more to do here, and then I'm going to, but clearly, don't you think this looks like it came from the same or a very similar school? Or their curriculum was very lined up. This one is 1932. I don't know why we know that. Let me see if I can figure out why we know that. All right, so again, we have the series of a pin tuck. Oh, over, this has a seam on it as well. We have a French seam. Oh, this is the French seam. Oh, this is the front. French seam, Feld seam. The edge of the fabric butted up to each other. So basically, if you have two lengths of 45-inch wide fabric and you want to make a 90-inch piece, this is a technique you could do to put that seam in, right here. We have another Feld seam, slightly different than the first. Yeah, this one is a Feld seam stitched by hand. This is a Feld seam stitched by machine, right here. And then this one is just a stitched one, but they finished the back with and they anchored it down with a hem stitch. Here we have a decorative drawn thread edge, insertion lace, interesting, handled the two different ways. Another drawn thread work. And this is more handwork. This is a seam that is completely stitched down by hand. Some more drawn thread work, and then buttonhole plackets with buttonholes. Oh, look, she didn't finish. This buttonhole didn't get finished. But it's kind of interesting to have that there because you now know that they cut before they finished, for sure. This one's $40. All right, and then this one is another linen piece. I just love the linen pieces, the way they feel. This is a 1904 piece. This one does have a quite extensive stain on it. We have different hem techniques. This isn't drawn thread, but what this is a fancy decorative stitch so that you pull in the linen and it shows the lines. Drawn thread work. And several, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, several different drawn threads. However, the student was not a tidy girl. I'm assuming girl. CS. We have a buttonhole placket that she stitched down very sloppily. Oh, this is a rebel. Holy moly, this is a rebel girl. Very much a rebel. Bit of both handwork and machine work. And her machine work, can you tell which side is the machine work? That little crooked line is her machine work. She was not happy to be doing this class. Now her buttonholes are beautiful. Maybe she just didn't like the sewing machine. Her pin tucks, sloppy as all get out. Here is a seam butted up and done by hand. Flat Feld and French seam here, here and here. And then here is the two edges of the fabric seamed and then anchored together, like with the overhand stitch. I'm gonna really have to try it. They definitely look like the raw edge of the fabric, so I don't think you could do this on anything but putting two pieces together. And then we have another piece of insertion and a few different hem techniques. I'll show you the back. So this is a twill tape hem. Here's a folded over hem. Definitely folded over and pulled to give you a decorative edge. More twill tape. We don't have a bias edge on this. Oh, yes we do. Here's your bias edge right in here. She was not a happy camper though to be doing this, I gotta tell you. But her crochet work is gorgeous. Look at that. I have never seen that design before, but that is some beautiful crochet design. Very pretty. Yeah, I'm gonna have to investigate that one. So it looks like you do chains. I'm not sure how you do that design, but that is super pretty. Okay, and her cross stitch is lovely as well. But boy, that girl was not a happy. It's kind of cool to see the rebels in the group. All right, this is done on wool. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different buttonhole techniques. We have attaching bands of bias. We've got some little hand reinforcers, little hand triangles. And then look at these buttons. Are they not the most beautiful buttons in the world? And holes, eyelets, different eyelet techniques. And hooks and eyes and snaps. And then we're going to look at the back. This is $40, but that's because this is such an example. Look at that. So these are bound buttonholes. These are hand-stitched buttonholes, eyelets. Just gorgeous work. And this one was made by Marie Brockner, and her address is there. Yeah, that one's gorgeous. And then, oh, here is the other piece. Here's the other piece from the gal that liked the tissue paper. So let's see what we have here. Oh yeah, I'm going to save this because this is, well, no, actually I'll show you this one. So 19 A to Z, a little bit of cross stitch work. This may not be the same. 1911 is this one, we think, because of the 11, I guess. This is number 16. So this is not the same piece. The tissue paper is a different color. I think they put the tissue paper on so that you could see through the insertion lace. We have a little drawn work. This is a really rustic, I think cotton, but could be rustic linen. Doesn't feel like linen though. You've got your seams. This is interesting. Let's see what this is. Wow. So this is a satin stitch that's going up here. I assume she was joining two pieces together. Maybe this is another technique to seam two pieces of fabric together as flat as possible. Because let me tell you, you do not feel a seam there. And then we have a French seam, and we have a is this flat feld? Nope, that's just a regular. Wow, that is something else. That is a bound seam allowance right there. Cut very, very fine, but very firmly stitched together. No flat feld on this one. Well, I guess theoretically you could call this a flat feld. It's just very wide with a pleat. So that's more of a placket. But wow. And then this one's a regular folded over placket. And then she has her hooks and eyes sewn on. She's got tabs, tab, the fancy stitched death head buttons, and then a little bit of drawn work here that was definitely done on purpose, but just drawn work. And then one last thing, this just little decorative line under and over 2 and 3 stitches sometimes. Is this your flat? There's our flat feld seam right there. It's very flat. Given that this is such rustic fabric, it's quite amazing that she did this so well. And then here's 2 different techniques. She showed her stitch out and then under in the back to do her insertion lace. This is more of a rustic fabric, but beautiful workmanship. And one last one. Oh, we have 2. These are just repair squares. No, these are not just repair squares. These are 2 giant repair squares. How to finish a hanky edge with this technique. So we have a bias, we have a little drawn thread. On the corners, she did like a little eyelet stitch. Here, let me see if I can show this to you. We have a little eyelet stitch right here. So that's interesting to keep those corners together. She did sort of a blanket stitch. And then we have 2 very large repairs and then some buttons. No buttonholes, which is interesting. And then on the back, you can see how she handled the 2 different ones. Here it's completely hidden, and here we have zigzag and it's flapped open, the 2 seams. I have to say this lays flatter, but this is probably more sturdy. So what would you use? This technique in a jacket and this technique on like a dress that you want to lay flat against your hips? Because I can tell you, I have torn dresses on my hips hitting doorknobs many, many times. Oh, this belongs together. All right. One last repair. Here's a triangle repair. This is the back. We have the 2 different techniques. Well, no, this one is all folded in one. These are, your repair goes into your stitching. Oh, yep, this is the front. I don't know what that's about, why there's a piece of cardboard there. But let's flip this and see. Oh, she didn't finish. So she was doing a woven repair on this side, but didn't finish the work. But this is really interesting because then you can see what she was doing. So it was like you set up a warp very evenly, through the threads and then do weaving on the other side. And hand stitch the cardboard probably to keep it flat while you did your repair. Nice. And then 2 different repairs here. So here both the exterior and the interior are flapped to the inside in a zigzag stitch by hand was commenced, or a hemming stitch. And then this one, it's just completely hidden and folded under, but makes for a bulkier repair. And the same here. Little decorative stitching on the edges. All right. All right, that's it for me today. I am finished showing you what I'm going to show you today. I've got the other kinds of samplers to show you over the coming days, as well as more information about samplers in general. I hope you guys are doing well. I hope you're keeping your spirits up. It's winter still, so you know me and my spirits with the lack of sun. But I'm making do. The house is making progress, which is a little helpful. I had some photos today. But just, you know, goodbye. I'll let you go. I do want to remind you, if you haven't hit the subscribe button and if you haven't hitting the bell yet, definitely do so. Especially for this series, there will be more sampler talk. So if you want to follow, you get to see those. I'll also do update videos. I see you twice a week, and I'm going to carry on doing that, just showing you whatever I got going on in the house. But I'll see you in a couple of days, Sunday. Bye.